So the United States has been getting round after round of severe thunderstorms over the past few weeks, so much to the point where I just can't post a video about it every single day. For example, yesterday we had a pretty large supercell go right over Oklahoma City Metro, and it produced a tornado just to the south and to the west of the city. And a few days before that, we had a derecho move through the Houston area in Texas, which caused widespread damage all throughout the Houston metro. Even blew out windows in downtown Houston there. So just tons of severe thunderstorms over the past few weeks across many parts of the central United States, especially. Now we have another outbreak happening for the next couple of days, today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, especially for the day tomorrow. So that's what I'm making a video about for today. Today is May 20th, and so that's what we'll be looking at. So starting off with the HRRR model, looking at the jet stream level, what will be causing some of this. As we go out in time here over the next 24 hours, notice how we have this trough ejecting out of the Rocky Mountain area. And as we go into the day tomorrow, it produces a pretty large jet streak over the middle of the country. On the left exit region of that, it'll produce a low pressure system there across the northern plains, and they'll move off to the northeast, and it'll be dragging a cold front with it. To the south of that, that'll be one of the main culprits. That'll be the lifting mechanism to get these severe thunderstorms. And then as we go into Wednesday, by Wednesday morning, that jet streak starts to move off to the east, and we could be talking about another round of severe thunderstorms, basically from Texas all the way to the Great Lakes region. And then so going right to the simulated radar here from the HRRR model. Starting off here in the plain states for today, the main thunderstorm development doesn't happen until later this evening, maybe even closer to around sunset, maybe even after sunset, where we could get some scattered storms, maybe even a couple supercells developing across Nebraska, into parts of northern Iowa and southern Minnesota. A couple of these could be rather robust across portions of Nebraska. Got to watch out for a couple, maybe a tornado threat in here. Definitely large hail and damaging winds out of these. But if we look at a model sounding, we could see what type of tornado environment we're looking at here across Nebraska. So we definitely have a curvature in the hodograph, veering of winds in the low levels. It's kind of messy. The low level shear is very weak, and the helicity is not the greatest, so I wouldn't expect a widespread tornado threat in Nebraska today. But there is enough helicity out there to produce maybe an isolated tornado in one of these discrete supercells today. And as we go into the overnight hours, these storms start to form into multi-clusters, and maybe could be looking at some pretty widespread damage and wind threat across Nebraska and Iowa into the overnight hours. And then that takes us into tomorrow morning. So then let's shift a little bit more to the east here. So then as we go into the day tomorrow, let's go to where we left off. This is tomorrow morning, May 21st. We could be talking about some pretty robust thunderstorms across portions of Nebraska there, including Des Moines, for the morning hours. This would be more of a damaging wind threat I would expect out of this if it stays more into the clusters of storms like that. But then as we go into the afternoon tomorrow, we could be talking renewed area of thunderstorms could develop into Nebraska, maybe to the west of Lincoln, Nebraska, or somewhere around there. And that'll be moving off to the east during the day tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening. But even out ahead of that, we could have some discrete cells developing into portions of Iowa, maybe even northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin. Those could produce large hail, damaging winds out of that. And let's look at some of the model soundings for tomorrow to see what type of environment we're looking at here also. So let's go right about here where we are to the late afternoon tomorrow, where we could have some pretty strong storms moving into Iowa, and also some storms there in eastern Iowa moving into Illinois and Wisconsin. So this is the Des Moines area for tomorrow afternoon. And it's showing a nice curvature in the hodograph, lots of veering of the winds in the low levels. So because of that, we have a lot of helicity out there, over 300. That's the amount of updraft rotation potential we have. And then low level shear is decent and very high bulk shear. So I would expect a lot of damaging winds definitely out of these storms tomorrow. But we do have enough helicity and low level shear to produce a pretty good tornado threat tomorrow there across portions of Iowa. Especially if any of these cells can be more discrete here in portions of Iowa. I'd be very concerned in that area there for a more larger tornado threat there in the afternoon and evening hours. And then as we go into the evening tomorrow, as these storms progress eastward, it still stays into a more of a squall line as it moves through Iowa, as it pushes towards into Wisconsin, even as far north as southern Minnesota. If any of these cells can be a little bit more semi-discrete along the squall line, we could easily get some low-end tornadoes in there. As these storms start moving to the east, we could get some. We're going to start to get some back building across portions of Missouri, where we have to look out for the next threat of thunderstorms tomorrow evening, because the model is showing that some of these cells could be pretty discrete at first across Missouri. That's when we could have the tornado. That's when the tornado threat will be the highest there in Missouri, and then beyond that, once we go into the nighttime hours past sunset tomorrow, this whole squall line pushes into portions of Wisconsin, Illinois, into Missouri. And it's still looking rather robust according to the model here. So it could easily be getting some very strong winds out of this, pockets of large hail. If any areas can remain a little discreet, you get some QLCS tornadoes embedded in there. They'd be more on the weaker side. I wouldn't expect a major tornado threat out of the squall line as it pushes into portions of Wisconsin, Illinois, and Missouri. But with the helicity out there, like I said, you could easily get some low-end tornadoes, especially on the southern end that I just highlighted, where the cells might remain a little bit more discrete in portions of western Illinois into Missouri. And then just continuing this out, as we go into the overnight hours tomorrow night, that whole squall line pushes to the east into Indiana, Michigan, and southern Illinois, southern Missouri. And as it does that, it'll start to weaken as it moves ahead of the better lifting mechanisms, and into the overnight hours you get the day with the loss of daytime heating, I should say. The storms tend to weaken, and then that brings us into Wednesday. But this model doesn't go us that far out yet. So before we go into Wednesday, I just want to show you some of these helicity tracks that the model is showing. This just gives you an idea where we have the best, whether we have the best updraft rotation potential with some of these storms. And just going all the way to the end of the cycle, you can see we have the best, we have the most helicity tracks, I should say, here from eastern Nebraska into Iowa, and into portions of southern Wisconsin, northern Missouri, maybe even into northern Illinois, and perhaps southern Minnesota. So that's the area I'd be most concerned with for a tornado threat tomorrow, especially in Iowa, is where I think the best chance for tornadoes would be. And then I also want to show the significant tornado parameter, just putting everything together where we have the best tornadic environment over the next 24 to 48 hours. It goes on a scale of 0 to 10. So as we go into today and tonight, we have some pretty high values there across portions of Nebraska and Kansas, but a cap in place over Kansas should stop many of the storms from developing there. And then as we go into tomorrow afternoon, we get a huge flare-up here across Iowa and northern Missouri. We're having values in the 4 to 6 range. So a very, very ripe tornadic environment tomorrow there in portions of Iowa and northern Missouri. Something to keep an eye on. And that all moves to the east into portions of eastern Iowa, far southern Wisconsin, western Illinois, and into the evening hours. And then, like I said, we have that flare-up across Missouri here as those storms start to back build to the south. That's another area to keep an eye on for potential tornadoes there across central Missouri. But other than that, we could have a lot of very large hail tomorrow, and for some very strong damaging winds out of these storms. And then as we go into the overnight hours, all that tends to diminish as we move to the east. Now, let's go look at Wednesday, and so for that we have to go to the European model. Alright, so here we're looking at the European model for Wednesday morning. You can see we have the large extratropical cyclone over to the in the western Great Lakes region, centered at very low 982 millibars possibly. And then out ahead of that, where we have that cold front and occluded front, that's where we have the thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. So as we go into Wednesday afternoon, notice how the European model is showing a flare-up of thunderstorms basically all along that cold front there, from Texas all the way into Ontario, Canada. Anywhere along this area, anywhere along that cold front, these storms could become severe. I would expect these to be more of a linear and multi-cluster setup. So I wouldn't expect a huge tornado threat on Wednesday, but definitely large hail and damage and winds possible. But you could easily still get some isolated tornadoes in there on Wednesday. So let's just look at some of the model soundings tomorrow to see where we would have the best tornadic environment as of now. It's still 48 hours away, so this is not set in stone. This could change a little bit. But looking at Texas, the first thing I noticed is that the photograph is kind of messy, and we're not seeing a lot of veering of the winds in the low levels, and extremely low shear, so I would not expect a tornado environment there in Texas. And then looking towards, let's go to southern Illinois, the southern Illinois area. Very weak shear, a very weak low level shear and helicity, so yeah, I would not expect a tornado environment there either. And then even into the northern portions here, across the lower Great Lakes region. This is in Ohio. Still very weak shear, very weak helicity. Yeah, so anywhere along this cold front on Wednesday, as of now, I would not expect many tornadoes. This looks more like a damaging wind and large hail threat for Wednesday, basically. And with that being said, I believe that's all I have for today. So I hope everyone stays safe the next few days with this next round of severe weather. Seems like we've been having a lot lately here in the United States. So have a nice day, guys. I'll see you next time.